Everybody, thanks for joining me. I know our time is precious these days, so I'm very excited to have you here to give you a little update about Teams rooms, teach you a little bit more about what they can do for you, and what new features we're seeing and how they can help your teams interact, collaborate, and meet on a daily basis. My name is Jon Bennett. I'm the Director of the Presentation Systems here at System Source. And today, as I said, we're going to talk about Teams rooms and Teams rooms appliances for any space, how they can fit from your smallest room to your largest boardroom. How AI and Copilot partnered with Teams and Teams rooms can help us meet, collaborate, and really improve our day-to-day workflow. The difference between the licensing tiers, whether it's the free tiers basic, free Teams basic, or the Pro Teams rooms license, and what they can do for us. Some of the new features that we're seeing come out and that will be coming out up until about July this year, including video recap, live interpretation, and using these spaces for digital signage when they're not in use. And then a little bit, as you'll learn and see through this, hopefully a lot of you are Teams users now. I know the joke every time is that we're talking about Teams. We're running on GoToWebinar here. It's just what we're used to. Teams does have a great webinar side to it as well too. But the difference between our normal day-to-day desktop Teams that we use to communicate with our staff and our colleagues, and Teams rooms that we would put into our conference spaces. I hope you're all enjoying your pizza today. If you're having any issues with that, I will leave this up on your screen for a few seconds. You can email Julie and she'll help get that taken care of for you. So again, if you have not received your pizza or you're having any issues, please feel free to go ahead and email Julie there. I saw someone raise their hand. Are we having an issue today? If you're having trouble hearing me, you can put a message in chat. Just make sure everything's going okay. I know we've been having some issues with GoTo recently, so I just want to make sure everyone's good there. All right. As I said, if there's any issues, oh, there's chat right there. Oh, perfect. Great. As I said, I saw a hand raised, and I'm on the web app today, so I saw some interesting signs next to everyone's names in the attendee panel. So I was just making sure we weren't having issues there. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping here. During the webinar, audio is in presentation mode until the end. In the chat tab, please feel free to share your thoughts. And in the questions tab, you can go ahead and submit written questions for the Q&A at the end of the presentation. As I said, I am in the web app, not on my desktop app, so it's a little hard for me to keep track of these during the webinar, but I will do my best. If nothing else, I will follow up at the end and try to answer any questions or set you up with somebody that can have that answer for you. After today's session, we will be emailing out the recording of the webinar and a copy of the presentation that you see here today in PDF format. Once you're done, you'll receive an evaluation here today. We'd really appreciate your thoughts on how I did, how the presentation was, and anything we can do better moving forward. We do take those very seriously and track them and try to make the best experience we can for our customers. One of those evaluations will be drawn for a $50 Amazon gift card. All right, so let me tell you, I'm sure a lot of you probably already know who we are and what we do, but here at System Source, when you do have AV and IT needs, we are here to help you improve those aspects, whether it's through training, through our training center and training partners, through presentations, which you're here for today, audio, visual systems and services and sales. Our team of consultants on the IT side that can help you from anything from the smallest IT rollout to the largest Wi-Fi planning, and cloud services, whether that is hosting, backups through AWS, things along those lines. When you do improve your systems, you will also need to maintain them. So that brings us to our services and support services. From our department here at Presentations, I'm sure a lot of you, if you do work with us, know Mike Johnson, through our managed print services, where we can proactively help you with toner and ink before you even know you need it. Also here, we have a very large managed services help desk that helps many businesses in the Baltimore area. So if you aren't familiar with that, please let me know. They are great. Everybody loves them, and you'll hear a name D all the time. And once systems are improved and maintained, there's generally some extra monies left there because we're saving so much to acquire and purchase new systems, services, and training at that point. So for 44 years, we've been here in the Baltimore area, and we aim to really help our customers through that longevity and our partners with all our manufacturers. You are here with me in a webinar today, but we do have some more exciting webinars coming up. A couple here that we see on screen, successfully migrating to Microsoft Azure Cloud, turning Microsoft 365 Copilot into real workflows. I think this is a really neat one coming up. We are going to talk a little bit about AI and Copilot today. Very hot topic out there. I know there's a little bit of back and forth whether AI should or shouldn't be there, but we are really using it to augment our teams and augment our workflows here, not necessarily replace or anything like that. So check that out with Michelle's team. They do a lot of really neat AI training there. And how to delay Microsoft's July price increase for 1 year in licensing updates. I get a little chuckle when I read this, but I'm sure this can be very important to a lot of you and a lot of your teams. If it's not something you're dealing with, please feel free to pass this along to the people in your teams that might be dealing with this coming up. We know the world is getting more and more expensive every day, and anything we can do to help mitigate that is always a plus. So they are up here on the screen. You can also go to our website, click the webinar titles, or see others that are coming up and sign up right from there. So with that being said, let's get right into the meat and potatoes of why we're here. What is Teams Rooms, who's using it, and how it can help you improve your collaboration. So Teams Rooms is used by 70% of the Fortune 500. I think we all know that, with the advent of 365, Teams has become very prevalent in everyone's workflow. And there's a couple of names down there, some big ones that are using Teams Rooms there. Here are a couple metrics up on the screens for you. These always amaze me. These are coming through the total economic of Microsoft Teams Rooms. It's done by the Forrester's composite organization. So 6,000 hours a year of more productive work, making hybrid employees feel seen, heard when they join remotely. We do know that, I don't know how many of you are back in the office or remote hybrid, but having these avenues to allow people to communicate effectively and feel like we're actually able to work is great. 60 hours a week, less time in resolving issues. Microsoft is leaning very heavily into the management side of Teams and Teams Rooms through the 365 admin portal. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on how they continue to improve that. So when these things are able to be proactively solved, we are saving time when Teams Rooms are in place and we have one-touch join, things like that. We're not struggling to, you're muted, is your mic on? I can't get into the meeting because I walk into a space and I click one button and everything just works. That leads right into 10 minutes of meeting saved for those exact reasons, from struggling to find the meeting ID, the link in our Outlook, trying to get the right microphone and camera running, things like that. When we cut that out of our workflow, we get right to it. The technology falls into the background and we don't have to think about it. 37 hours a week saved before and after meetings. Just efficiency in content sharing using some of the AI tools we'll talk about for intelligent recaps, for making action items, sending notes out to our team, and then a little bit of a decrease in IT efficiency with the remote management that we talked about a little bit earlier. So Teams Rooms have really become a very flexible, scalable device where we can go in anywhere. As I said, whether it's the smallest huddle rooms, I'm putting Teams Rooms into 3-seat closets, if you would. I know we've all been there, whether you call them phone booths, huddle rooms. There's a new name that Microsoft has coined, we'll see later there, all the way up to I put them in training rooms, split combined spaces, conference centers, really empowering anyone to get into these meetings without having to think. So we'll have all the right devices that'll tailor to your needs and scale at that point. So why do people meet? And I think we can all probably answer this. But here are a couple items up on the screen that really drive these spaces, whether it's solving problems together, brainstorming, just sharing information, catching up, making sure we're all on the same page, actually making the important decisions for our organization, or just connecting. We all live in this hybrid world. I know with my team, whenever we get a chance to meet, we're not talking on the phone, we're seeing faces. It really helps us realize that we are here together. So a quick picture here, just touching back on any size room from focus to large. We have those devices, we have the different setups that are very easily deployable to any space that you have. So consistency in Teams rooms. This has really been the drive. This is what we try to help our customers and you guys with, especially as you start to see the need to deploy more and more of these spaces. Anybody that's been involved in audiovisual systems for a lot of years knows where we were at one point where everything was custom, everything was different. Every year we put a new room in and it was new stuff. Microsoft has really moved to make these rooms look and feel the same, no matter who you go with, no matter what devices you have. That Teams room panel, that interface your users are going to be touching, is going to feel the same, which really allows your users, your staff to walk into any space and feel comfortable using that. We know how important that is, that when an end user is intimidated or isn't comfortable with a space, it doesn't get used, and you're not seeing that ROI. That leads into the learning curve. No more training for every room. If everyone's comfortable with the one Teams room you put in, the next one that goes in, they'll walk right in and know exactly how to use that. QR codes for room booking. We know how ad hoc meetings go. Utilizing these on the screen for either joining meetings with QR codes or to schedule that onto your Outlook calendar so people know the room's in use. And then the one-touch join I talked about. Everybody has loved the ability to schedule a room. You walk in and there's a big green button on the panel that says join meeting, and that's all I have to touch. A couple other ways to join meetings here. These are, the first one, ultrasonic proximity join. This is a very interesting concept. We're seeing more and more users bring their laptops into the space where the Teams room is running, which is running the Teams meeting, and join that meeting from their laptop, whether it's to share content, whether it's to be able to see the content a little better because now I have a screen close to me. Ultrasonic proximity join tells my laptop that I'm within distance of that Teams room and shuts my camera and my microphone off. I think we've all been in spaces before, or hopefully you haven't, but I'm sure many of you have, where a user walks into a room, connects to a meeting, and then all of a sudden I've got feedback and echo and weird noises and everyone's screaming to stop. This avoids that. This says, hey, I'm in the room, lets you see the content, lets you share your laptop without the fear of that. Adding some UI improvements to join by meeting ID, not so important, but sometimes you will need someone from outside your organization will just send you the code for the meeting, and having that ability on the panel is great. And then what we talked about is scanning the QR codes. This is great for mobile users. There are some neat mobile features out there right now when I walk into the room and I want to join with my phone, whether it's to share content, whether it's just to react to the chat or raise my hand. That QR code lets me jump right into the meeting without having to think. So with that, real quick, as we're talking about rooms and devices and how spaces are used, Teams panels and scheduling panels outside of rooms. This is a complementary device that sits outside the room that allows rooms to be scheduled from the touch of a button. Show the status of the space. So if you have many of these, or you're walking down the hallway to see, hey, is there a room I can jump into real quick to have a quick meeting, make a quick call? I have a panel outside with an LED light. Red light means stop, the room's in use. Green light means the room's free. So this allows us check in and check out. This also helps your IT teams manage when these rooms are getting used. So if I know when people are walking into rooms in an ad hoc style, because they walk in and they trigger the room and they say, hey, I'm here, we can start seeing what rooms are being used more. This can help you plan for next year's budget. If you find that you're in an organization that has 3 huddle rooms, 4 medium conference rooms, and 1 large boardroom. And you can look back and see that, hey, 9 times out of 10, those 3 huddle rooms are getting scheduled and they're booked all the time, even for the people walking in. Now I know where that budget can go next year, or should go. Maybe we need to look at making more of these small 2-3 person rooms for these quick meetings. So we've talked about devices. We're going to talk a little bit here. I don't get into individual manufacturers very much, if at all, in this presentation, because, as I said, no matter who you go with, that interface for your users is going to be the same. So you're really open to and not locked into a single manufacturer here. But we do have 3 main system types when we talk about Teams rooms. Modular, these are going to be your custom systems. These are going to be what some manufacturers call integrator kits. These allow me to connect various different cameras, microphones, speakers. Say you have a room that's too large for what we're going to talk about next, integrated. I guess I'm confusing there, which would be like a speaker bar. We can put our traditional AV type systems, digital signal processors, ceiling microphones, multi-camera systems into the Teams room and still utilize them there. For the integrated systems, these are mainly going to be running on Android, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference between Windows and Android later. But these are going to be the combined speaker bar systems I'm sure a lot of you have seen at this point. Cameras, microphones, speakers, and the Teams room all built into a small speaker bar that lives under your TV. And kind of one of the up and comings, I think it's the most fun, and we'll talk about it more in the next slide, are the touchboard systems, the integrated touchscreen Teams meeting room boards for collaboration, things like that have some really cool features in them. So this is going to be the one manufacturer-specific product here I speak about because it's Microsoft's. But the Microsoft Surface Hub is one of the major players in that touchboard market. As we can see here, this is giving us a multi-touch screen for collaboration, for note-taking, for markups. It's going to have all your Teams Rooms features that we talked about in it, like one-touch join. But why I think this is really cool and why I like to present this to everybody is that Microsoft has partnered with Steelcase and APC to make a battery-powered cart for it. So if you do have a space, or you're not sure, you don't have a room, you don't know where you want your Teams room, maybe I've got multiple conference rooms, but my budget says, hey, I've got to do one here. This is a great product because it runs for, I believe, 4 or 5 hours on the charge, plugs into the wall, connects to the Wi-Fi. Once I've unplugged that charging cable, my Teams room can go anywhere, whether it's in a cubicle space, a lunchroom, move between different conference spaces that way. Really gives me the flexibility to have that mobile device there. So if you'd like any more information, we're getting a lot of chatter about these. They've been out for a while. Please let me know in either the chat or the questions or in your follow-up survey here. So we talked a little bit about digital signage for Teams rooms. So as we're talking about devices right now and kind of making you acquainted with with devices and the spaces they can go, this is a new feature coming up. I believe it's going to be July this year is going to be the rollout. Currently in Teams rooms, you can brand the backgrounds, which is really neat. I think that's one of the coolest features of these systems. Is that when I have a space, a conference space, my logo's up in the room as soon as the room turns on. That way, it really puts that shine on, gives that professional look to your conference room, and especially if you have guests coming in, shows your branding there. That's always been a static image on the background that's showing the schedule of the room. In July, Microsoft is going to be rolling out a feature that allows me to start loading slides and videos to this to use it for actual signage. So any of you that have signage in your spaces, whether it's showing what's going on with your company, welcoming important guests, things along those lines. Now your conference rooms are going to have that built in. So while they're not in use, we know glass walls are very prevalent these days in corporate, commercial, and education spaces. We can utilize these rooms to help deliver information to our end users. So that's a little bit about the devices, the background of Teams rooms, how they can fit into your spaces. But let's talk a little bit, and this is probably one of the biggest questions we have and we get within the space is, okay, John, you're telling me about Teams and Teams rooms, but what about Zoom? What about WebEx? What happens if my organization splits between the two, or I have customers that use Zoom and we use Teams. How does this work? How do I get over to that from our Teams room systems? And that comes into a couple different ways here. One of the major ways that's really improved over the years is interoperability. When this stuff started, we think back to the COVID era. The big fight between is Zoom going to take over, is Teams going to take over, and we couldn't talk to one another. They wouldn't play in the same sandbox. Since then, we've seen both sides and WebEx, Cisco, we can't forget Cisco here, starting to add some interoperability from their admin side of things, allowing me to do things like direct guest join. So with a couple of clicks and some settings on the back end of the admin side, my Teams room can now join a Zoom meeting, whether it's through a meeting ID, whether it's scheduled for that Zoom meeting or WebEx meeting. At that point, I'm not locked in natively to just Teams. Now, when I do join the Zoom meetings and the WebEx meetings, I am just a basic participant in the space, so I don't have a lot of the interesting features that might be available in just Zoom or just WebEx, whether it's chat or raising my hand or anything like that. But I can still get into that meeting. I can still connect to my customer that uses Zoom through my conference space without having to bring a laptop in or put a lot of thought into it that way. And as I said, that's going always right now through the three big players here, Zoom and WebEx and Teams, allowing that to go. So it's really bringing that cost down. It's really bringing that ease of use up for our spaces there. And with that, if we still have any older SIP or 323 H.323 systems, so this would be, if you think back, anybody that's been working with this technology since Poly was doing codecs. If you remember the name Hamburg, Lifesize, the classic video conferencing prior to Teams and Zoom, those would be SIP and H.323 systems. So there is some features that can be turned on within Teams rooms on the admin console, allowing us to connect to these older systems. I actually still do. I believe they're starting to really phase them out, but I have a customer or two that has so many rooms that trying to deploy Teams or Zoom in these spaces and phase out their old Poly systems was, a multi-year ordeal. So this allows them to continue to talk with these systems through their Poly standard video conferencing codecs. So we talked about, as I said, direct guest join. This allows me to join right into these other services from my Teams room. I'm not locked into there. Again, I talked a little bit much on the first slide there, but getting into these WebEx, these old Poly meetings, Lifesize, and things like that. So that's kind of the gist of where Teams rooms are, and they're going on the device level, on the connection level, kind of on the baseline here. So we're getting in a little bit now. We'll talk a little bit about a little bit of security. I'm not happy where they have this slide in, but a little bit of security, and then getting to licensing, what they can do for you. So one of the big drivers, we talked about the integrated speaker bars running Android versus Windows. For a lot of our IT teams, has been safety and security with the Android devices. Managing those things, a lot of us we're full 365 houses. It's very difficult to bring an Android device in and manage it securely. With that, the Microsoft is working with Android and working with a couple of manufacturers to develop the MDEP, the Microsoft device ecosystem platform, allowing a little bit deeper management with your Android devices. So adding some security layers to that, using Android open source devices to really be able to play with them, allow your teams to see, manage, and secure them, and as well as provision them on your networks as we go. So before we get into the fun features, because when we get into the fun features, the AI, the Copilot, things like that, you're going to see a lot, and you're going to hear me say this is only available on Microsoft Teams Rooms Pro licensing. So up on your screen here is what we're going to see as the difference between the free Teams Room Basic license and the Teams Room Pro license, which is $40 per room per month. As you can see on the free side, I'm getting really the basic features, the one-touch join we spoke about, wireless sharing through Teams. But I'm going to be limited down to 25 rooms. And my management functionality, what I'm going to see through the admin console, is going to be limited there. What I'm not going to see on a free room license is some of the things that we see on the left side here. Any of the AI features that we're going to talk about today, whether it's the camera, the audio features, intelligent recap, things along those lines, we're not going to have access to in our Teams rooms. No support, as I said, for the cameras that are doing some really cool things in the cloud. None of the advanced device management, so health signals, things along those lines. Not going to have access to whiteboarding in Teams. We'll talk that later. We use that all the time on just our desktops, let alone our room. Really neat feature. And any of the new multicam experiences that are coming up, whether it's intelligent video cutting up the users in the one camera image to put them on different squares on your screen, or camera switching, things along those lines. So we do, as you get in, if you are bringing these rooms online, my team will suggest that I think the pro license is right just about for anybody. But if you're unsure, you don't know where you want to go, you don't know if this is, you're really going to use some of these things or miss them, or if you're not using them currently, the basic license will bring your room online, and it will let you connect to other users out there. The next two slides, I'm going to kind of skip through a little bit. They're the kind of the ones that are hard to see in a presentation like this. You will find them if you're interested to really drill down on what features are available between Teams Room Basic and Teams Room Pro when you get your PDF from Julie at the end of the webinar here. But we can see there is a lot more available on the pro side of things than the free side of things. And again, here's the next slide, just the features that are available and where they are between the different versions of Teams Room Pro. I don't believe, and I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, that we have many government, if any, here on the call today. But you can see as we get into GCC and GCC High, depending on the security level, that's really come a long way in the last couple of years. GCC is pretty much on par with public. High security is almost there, and DoD, they are still working on clearing that. So if we do have anybody or anybody that knows anybody in DoD, that is coming, and they are planning. It's just a much stricter and more stringent thing to pass with the government there. Again, we talked about Android. We can see, as one would suspect, that the features on the Windows side of things are supported a little bit higher than the Android things because it's Microsoft, but Android is still running pretty well. It surprises me, though, with the less features. We do see the Android rollout on the roadmap happen before the Windows thing. So I think there's just a little more testing going on, and Android's a little more excited to get these features in and approving them, and Microsoft is testing them a little heavier. I have one thing on the roadmap you'll see that on. So that's Teams Rooms licensing, kind of the boring stuff out of the way, how it can fit into your spaces. So as you think about this in your organization, if you're interested and you have rooms and you're not sure, please let us know. Our team, as I said, are doing rooms from the smallest 2-person table pressed up against the wall to the largest conference centers with Teams Rooms. So really the options are limitless there. So with that, let's talk about some of the neat things, the AI, the buzzwords, all of those things that we're hearing in the industry today, and what's going to set Teams Rooms apart from other services and from your desktop. So we know AI is really rapidly becoming a key solution. My team is using it all over the place to help supplement what we do. We're using a lot of the features within Teams for our meetings to really kind of take the thought out of things along those lines. So it's really not about making it successful, but it's really trying to support the new world of work at this point. Keep our teams focused on what's important and not note-taking action items, emails, and things like that after your meetings. So this also is going to help drive, if you are in a position where you're trying to push towards return to work, you're trying to get people back in to collaborate in person. Really knowing when and where to come into the office for our employees is important. Um, it's also trying to make the space friendly and welcoming and exciting for our teams. We're at home, we're working. I know a lot of people have that going on for them. How do I lure them back into the office? How do I say, hey, my conference rooms are really where you want to be because you're getting these feature sets, you're having better meetings, they're more exciting that way. You're looking better for your customers. And with that, 65% of the global office space is really remaining underutilized. We're starting to see it come back to the return to office, but a lot of the space is really changing as we go. So how do we bring that back in? How do we utilize the space that we have and really keep it engaging for our teams? So we hear a lot of chatter about AI, whether it's good, whether it's bad, but a couple metrics from Microsoft themselves is that 75% of people are already using AI at work. I know just about every member of my team is using it in one way, shape, or form. And about 50% of those started using it in the first half of 2024. So AI is here. It's how we use it, I believe, at least in my thoughts, what we're utilizing it for, having it supplement what we do and not overtake is what's important. So with that, 50% of people they're finding are asking for a more flexible work schedule or location, and 43% of us feel disconnected from their company. And I know that's true for a lot of people on my team when we're not meeting. So how can we use AI in the workplace to drive this? That's where Copilot, you've heard come in with teams and all that. So whether it's improving coordination across the workspaces, enhancing these meetings, as I said, into driving whether it's better note taking, whether it's being able to ask questions of the meeting itself, and pull out information quickly, no matter who spoke it. Whether it's having that recap at the end. We have an hour meeting, we talk forever, but really, do we need to share that whole hour with the team? With somebody that couldn't make it? Do they need to sit for that and go through? Or was there really only maybe a third of that, 2/3 of that were really important, that wasn't talking about the weather or the weekend or our kids? So utilizing AI to help us drive those intelligent recaps down to what really matters. And then optimizing how we plan moving forward. I know we love it for action items, for follow-up emails. I'm focusing on the meeting now and not taking notes and building checklists that way. So as Copilot is out there, now I know Copilot, I believe, is a separate license through 365. There's a couple of really big kind of things we've talked about here. Intelligent recap. This is really one of the neat features when we're in that meeting, whether we're asking it to recap through text, so a quick blurb or a couple paragraphs about what happened in the meeting, all the way up to video recap, driving a edited, curated video that we can send out to our teams that really just show the highlights of the meeting, the important things. Speaker recognition. This is, I think, one of the most exciting things, though kind of a little bit scary for a lot of us, that Microsoft is doing here with Teams. We're bringing people back into these conference spaces, and I have a room with 7 to 10 people in them. The room is driving, large conference room, let's say, and I'm asking Copilot to make notes from this space, whether it's a video recap or just even text notes. With speaker recognition, giving Microsoft or giving your admins a voice print, things like that on the admin side. Teams and Teams rooms can now tell me who is speaking in that recap without having to think about it. I don't need to be logged into my personal account. I can be in the one room with 7 of my colleagues. The room is now smart enough to say, hey, when I'm taking notes, when I'm taking action items, it says, hey, Jeff said, or hey, Julie said, knowing that right there. So again, gone are the days, at least for us in these meetings, and I have a lot of customers very interested, whether it's through Teams or through third-party AI services, of utilizing these things so we can put the pen down and we can focus on what matters. And that's, as I said, in the transcript or even in the meeting recap through AI. We talked about, you've heard me say action items a lot. That's really kind of, I think, our biggest use case here. I don't know if that rings true to any of you guys, but being able to get those action items down without having to think, have them drafted into emails and being sent out immediately to everybody that's involved in the meetings, and being able to communicate that way. So if you're there late, you're getting those notes that you missed. We don't have to stop and go back and say, hey, John's here now. Let's talk about what we just talked about for the last 15 minutes. I can be sure that I'm going to get a good view of what happened when I was out. I can keep the meeting rolling, and we're saving everybody's time. Again, a cool little chart here you can share with your organization. We'll go through all of it, talking about how and what both co-pilots and Teams rooms can do for us. So by utilizing the co-pilot side, we've talked about intelligent audio and video, getting meeting insights, asking questions of that, attributing speakers' names to that transcript, recognizing who's in the space. So as we talk about intelligent video in a second, it's going to cut my face out and make sure my name's under it for the end users on the far side. So people that are looking at the 7 of us in the room know who they're looking at now. And then on the co-pilot side, we talked about the summaries. We can ask it things, as it says here, like capture what Beth said as a quote. I can ask it to find information that was spoken about in the meeting, and just see what's important and what I need to know. So really speeding up my yours and your colleagues' data that we're getting from these spaces. Inclusivity, meeting equity, I think is what we used to call it quite a bit, especially when this just started, is really important, I believe. Making sure that everyone feels like they're in the meeting and they're not just a viewer, that they're actually a participant. I know this was a big drive. I know myself, and I'm sure a lot of you, when we started going to these remote things in COVID, when we were, just yesterday, we were all sitting in a room talking. Now I'm a face on a screen. Do I feel comfortable interacting, jumping in? How do we keep this natural? That's where the technology has gone from giving that meeting equity to everybody, to making sure that they feel seen, they feel heard, doing our best to have an eye-to-eye conversation, even though I'm sitting here at a laptop. That's what's really become important in utilizing these tools and this technology to improve that even further. It surprises me every day how far it's come. So you've heard me say intelligent video. What Microsoft is calling it within the Teams rooms and Teams platform is IntelliFrame, with intelligent cameras. What this is utilizing, at one point this required special cameras, but now they've moved it into the cloud. So now we can use our standard cameras and the cameras that may exist in your spaces already, to take care of this. But we're using AI to take that camera feed, find faces, find people, and cut them up and make it feel like we're sitting in front of our laptops. Give us the best view we can of each attendee's face. So I may have that, that classic bowling alley view of my conference room where I have a camera looking down the table and I kind of see a sea of faces and they blend together. With 4K cameras, with IntelliFrame, we're using AI to say, hey, I see 7 faces, let's put them up on the screen. So if I'm sitting at my laptop at home, I'm seeing everybody in the space and not just a sea of people. As I said, we're now moving this to the cloud. Both the intelligent audio and video has now been leveraged there on the Microsoft side. So no longer am I locked into specific hardware with these functions built into them. There's still some limitations between the two. We are getting, more people on intelligent speakers heard and detected than I am through the cloud. I am seeing a little cleaner and faster use of IntelliFrame with the specific hardware than with the cloud, but at this point, this allows the flexibility to retrofit spaces and not go completely new. Automatic camera switching has been a big drive in the industry in the past year and a half. Crestron really took charge with this when they purchased the company One Beyond, who had the Automate platform. Some of you may or may not know about the Automate platform. This is outside of Teams, but it was really driven to create a space that allowed for multi-camera use, automatic switching based on audio to take the hands off the touch panel. What we're seeing with automatic camera switching for IntelliFrame in the Teams room side is taking some of that functionality and using multi-camera systems within Teams rooms to do camera switching, whether it's to find the best camera shot in the space, know when it needs to go out to the full view and include that, and really take the thought process out of it, driving towards that meeting equity there. And multi-camera view selection to make sure that now I'm not locked into one camera at a time, that if I have multiple cameras plugged into my Teams room, that I can have an overview, as we're seeing on the screen here, using some intelligence to go, I should be looking at my presenter at the podium, or as we saw that woman at the table raise her hand, now I need to go back to the table to really try to make this an engaging space and an engaging meeting. So this, what we're looking at here, is front row. This is specific to Microsoft. This is kind of their end goal of the meeting space, if you would say, to really give us all the information we need and take our meeting rooms and make them equitable with what we're seeing on the desktops. Front row can be done on a single screen, a standard screen, but it is best on either ultra-wide displays or a side-by-side display. But here, everything's on the screen for me, from the presentation like we're seeing today, to the chat within the space, to the raised hands for participants, so we don't have to jump in if someone is presenting at the front of the room and be jarring. Anyone's used that. I was in a meeting last night that we were using the raised hands, and it actually made the flow really, really well. I don't use it a lot in the day-to-day, but I saw the light in that one, instead of people just unmuting and blurting things out. Down to the front row participants. We're taking those individual camera shots. Microsoft is using AI to cut the backgrounds off and put people right in front of us, no matter where they are, trying to give us that face-to-face feel. To take the backgrounds that we have, whether you have a blurred background or you've used one of the added backgrounds to Teams, or we're just within our space, to take that distraction out. So we're not looking at, someone's not blurred, their dog walking through, or whatever funny picture they decided to use that day. We're really focusing on the users there. So front row has become a kind of a big thing here. We're seeing more and more of these ultra-wide displays go into conference spaces to get more of this data on the screen in one spot, and front row is a great way to utilize that. The facilitator agents. Some of you may or may not used a facilitator, whether it's through a third party or you're using it in Teams, or it just randomly popped in and you didn't know who that other person was in your meeting. Facilitator agents act as participants in your space. It's an AI participant in your space. So these are where we're getting a lot of the very high-powered notes from and recaps. So if it's activated on the admin side or on the meeting organizer side, you will see that agent in the facilitators list. And that's driving a lot of this functionality that we're seeing here today. One of the newer features here, especially for Teams rooms, is using these facilitators in offline meetings. So this, I forget the date that this came out, but this is allowing us to not even have to join a meeting, but I can meet in person in a space that has a Teams room in it and still utilize that facilitator functionality for note-taking, action items, recaps, things along those lines. So I don't have to be in that meeting. That room is just a smart room at that point. And then QR codes, again, we're going to see QR codes a lot. Everybody loves QR codes, apparently, to help take notes on the session, invite that facilitator into the space if you'd like to have them in that meeting to take those notes for you. So to kind of recap on the inclusive meeting experiences, we're seeing the live captions we talked about. I think you may have seen in the invite here. This is great for people that might be hard of hearing. This is great for those of us that watch our TV with our captions on. That's someone that may have a different accent than us, to allow AI to drive those captions on the screen as people are talking, to make sure that we're understanding and we're not missing anything that the far side is showing. Wirelessly sharing content. There's actually a a roadmap item here, but through Teams, Teams allows wireless sharing just through its platform. It detects when I'm in the room, whether it be through that ultrasonic that we talked about earlier, and allows me just to present up onto the screen without having to be there. But we're also going to see they're adding Miracast support for those of you that are familiar with that. That's been kind of baked into Microsoft since the dawn of time. It's kind of their generic casting to TVs, things along those lines. That's going to be built into Teams from here very shortly. Personal expressions, utilizing that raised hand like we talked about through the Teams room, so we're not interrupting the presenter. And then the chat panel that we saw in front row. Everybody is there. All the users are on the screen. They're right in front of us, making sure that everybody's in the conversation. And then we heard, I spoke a little bit about the companion device in your phone. So there's some neat features there, whether it's in the room and I want to use that raise hand feature because the room is detecting my face or my voice, things like that. I don't necessarily need to bring the laptop. I can scan the QR code and just kind of have the phone as a remote control there. It's another feature my team uses quite a bit. We talked about the touch board earlier. This is getting a little deeper into the Microsoft whiteboarding functionality, whether it is through the Teams whiteboard or what we're seeing. And if you've joined any of my 5 and 15s recently, we've talked a little bit about whiteboard content cameras. I still have, and I know a lot of people, I'm one of them. I need to write with a pen and paper when I'm taking notes. That's how I've done it. That's how I retain information. And there's still a lot of people out there that need to write on a physical whiteboard. They feel more comfortable. They're quicker at it. It just feels normal. We can still keep those classic whiteboards and chalkboards in your spaces without having to go completely digital by utilizing whiteboard cameras. So it's a content camera that sits above your whiteboard that's using AI to actually scrub out the end user that's writing. As we see here with this specific camera, it's turning the person writing on the board into a silhouette to really focus on what's there. A lot of these are also enhancing and leading that text that we're putting up there so we can take it digitally after the fact, alter it, and send it out to the end users without having to go to a touch screen, without having to try to do it with a mouse and keyboard on our laptop. If that's what we have in the space, let's turn what we know into something a little more technologically advanced. But with that, the Surface Hub, that ties directly into the whiteboarding feature on Teams, which I love because it's an app on my my desktop. It's in my Teams. I have it on my phone. Anywhere I go, if I need to go back to our ideas, our markups, things like that, I have access to that, whether it's inside or outside of a meeting. So we talked about intelligent video. This is getting a little further into intelligent audio and speaker recognition. Like I said, using Copilot and Teams for intelligent recap and speaker recognition allows those notes to attribute to who spoke them. It's not just a big wall of text. Now I know who in that room physically said what. Intelligent speakers, they are out there. They are going to pick up a little bit better, but utilizing the cloud, we can now take your standard AV systems and bring them into the intelligent realm. As I think my favorite part of this is eliminating note-taking distractions. I can put the pen and paper down, focus on my team, and have those notes when we're done there. Everything is, all biometrics are encrypted by Microsoft. So I know that's a concern for a lot of people. We leave that up to you, whether it's something you want to utilize moving forward with that. But I think the benefits there, especially when we get into this, outweigh the having some of that on there, whether it's just a voice print or a face, the things we give away these days. So what's coming up on the roadmap before we kind of get into the IT side and wrap up here today? Ad hoc room reservations. These are coming. The rollout will start in June 2026. Currently, right now, yes, I can start ad hoc meetings from Teams rooms, but they're just within the room. We can do these ad hoc reservations with the scheduling panels we talked about outside the room, but Microsoft is bringing that functionality to that Teams room panel, to that user interface in the room. So now when I walk into the room, I'm not just starting a meeting; it is going to schedule onto my calendar and let people know that, hey, I walked into huddle room 1 and it's going to be in use now. The one-stop admin portal. The last few slides here are going to talk a little bit about the admin side. We won't go too deep into that. We can talk more about that in a one-on-one if you'd like. But right now, if anybody has seen the 365 admin portal, it's big. It's things are all over the place. Microsoft is working to bring all of the Teams room features into one-stop portal for these devices, to really give us a view of our conference spaces without having to go 9 different places within the 365 admin portal. So again, that's going to roll out. As you see here, the trend, there's a lot of stuff coming that's aimed for June of 2026. Some of these may push, some of these may be dropped, but currently they're shooting for a rollout start of June 2026 this year. Camera view switching. Currently, this is a little confusing the way they titled it. Currently, I can switch cameras on my unit. So if I'm sitting in the room and I want to give a different camera view, I can send that separate camera view or change that on my side. But what this is if I'm meeting with a room, so say the people you're talking with are in a Teams room and they have 2 or 3 cameras, and you say, hey, I kind of want to see this person better. I want to see it from this angle. This will give you the ability to switch those cameras from your space to really tailor what you're seeing on the screen for your team and what you want to see. If for some reason they're sending just a one close-up view of one person, but you want to see everybody in the space and they have that camera up, you can switch to that camera on that side. We talked about digital signage support. I think this is going to be one of the cooler things, especially with how all the architects want to put in glass walls to our conference rooms now. Being able to utilize these screens that can be visible in these spaces when they're not in use for transferring data to our teams, to welcome, to show what's going on in the company, to leverage these spaces even when they're not in use. AI-powered notes for in-person meetings. We talked about that facilitator being able to join offline spaces. Some of the things we talk about in this deck are to come, and that's coming in June 2026. So that's, I think, a really neat feature I'm excited for, to be able to have that facilitator in, even if I'm not joining into a meeting. And last but not least, Miracast support. That's coming in 2 months. Miracast is built into just about every Windows laptop, and this is going to allow us to send our content to the Teams room without having to be anywhere near the Teams app. Whether it's someone that doesn't have it on their laptop, whether it's a third-party device that utilizes Miracast, they're going to have that built in for network streaming of your video from your laptop or device to the Teams room. Last but not least, I just realized there's a slide missing from here. We talked about how to join Zoom, WebEx, third-party applications. All Teams rooms now are coming with bring your own meeting support through USB cabling. So that's your other option. We talked about the easy and making it seamless, but the classic way to do it is these rooms have a USB cable involved with them. Once that's plugged into my laptop is now taking the webcam, the microphone, the speakers from that room and treating it as a kind of a giant webcam for my laptop. So now I have these resources available to me, and from my desktop, I can use any service it is, whether it's Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet, whatever the next flavor of the year might be or great idea. It's going to treat the room as just a really big webcam like I would have on my desktop. And allow me to go into any of these services that way. Even recording platforms. If I just need to record a meeting in the room and I'm using something like Panopto, any of these other services, especially in the education world, plugging my laptop in, now I have that camera, now I have those microphones, now I have all those resources in the room available to my personal laptop. All right. So as I said, the last couple slides here, we're going to talk, just kind of breeze through the admin side of things. I know we're coming up. We've got about 5 minutes left here. So feel free, if you have some questions about this, to reach out to my team. Take a look at these if you are in that role where you're managing these and want to know a little bit more about the management side. But really, Microsoft trying to simplify deployment and management for these devices through there. So a couple of the fun things here are autopilot. These are things and ways that we can set these devices up on the admin side before they hit the network, before they hit the room. So as soon as they're plugged in, they're logged in and they're ready to go. That's going to bring us into OTP. Again, one-time passcode adds to that to really make these logins much quicker, much easier, much smoother to manage. Driving AI even into the portal, the admin side, trying to automate updates, give us problem detections, and make resolutions at scale there. Giving us access to some of the settings, best practices, and knowledge if we're on the admin side, and driving security as well. With the Pro license, we are getting the enhanced management. That's giving us remote access to these panels. These are very easy to use panels, but there will still be somebody that's confused, that's never used it before. If you're in a larger organization, if you're across campus, being able to log into that panel from the admin side of things and help that user hit the buttons they need to hit, see what they're seeing, get them into that meeting, get that going, saves their time, saves your time. Insight reports, as I said, what's happening within these spaces, what's being utilized within these spaces, what do I need to invest in the future? And then the team's panel devices can be monitored now there. Again, the Teams Room Pro Management Portal, we talked a little bit about that. And then health signals. This is another big one for dashboards, people that live their lives by the dashboards, being able to see who's healthy, who's unhealthy, who might need some look, being proactive with these before the next meeting. So whether that's the OS and the firmware didn't update correctly, these are PCs, configurations that need change, hardware's having issues, I can't detect the camera, I can't detect the microphone. Any of that can show up on the dashboard with the Pro license, allowing our management teams, our IT teams, to get into these rooms and fix them before I walk in, before the president walks in, before the CIO walks into the room, hits a button and something doesn't work. So with that being said, as I said, we've got about 3 minutes here. I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you learned something. If there's anything you'd like more information about, a personal meeting, drill down, please let us know in the evaluation of the questions here. I'll have a member of my team reach out to you. And we can talk a little bit deeper. We can get into what some of these devices are and what the differences are. Crestron is in the middle of a changeover right now. I think they're going to have the coolest Windows-based Teams room and Zoom room if you're a customer device on the market coming up. They're going to be very powerful. Lots of options for inputs to integrate into spaces, whether that's through a HD-based T, wall plate, standard HDMI. They're really positioning themselves to take advantage of AI in the future with some of the more powerful boxes out there. And if you have any of their Flex deployments in your space, they drop right in and replace the UC engines that are already there. So I don't see any questions here. So we really appreciate your time. I'm going to hang out here for a few more minutes. If there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free in the chat or the question section. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. It looks like a beautiful one out there. Hopefully it warms up a little bit and the pizza was good. Thank you.